Hi, I'm Greg Howlett, and I want to talk to you a few minutes about charting. Now, this is one of those things that many of us find very, very boring, and it can be boring. I have to admit it, but here's the thing about charting. It's foundational. As a matter of fact, many of the courses at greghowlett.com have prerequisites, suggested prerequisites anyway, and you'll find that almost every single course has this course as a prerequisite. If you don't know how to chart, analyze songs, to come up with the chords that are being used in the song, you're really, really, really going to struggle through the more advanced concepts. So this course is not necessarily fun, but it's only an hour. With a few weeks of work, you'll get quite good at this, and it's absolutely foundational. Now, we're actually going to watch the first part of the course. I want you to watch this clip where I discuss sort of what charting is, ways to do it, and I'll give you an idea of where this course goes. Welcome to my 1-hour class on how to chart a song, a skill that every church musician really needs to have, at least every church pianist. This is a foundational skill. This class is foundational to almost every class I teach, every course I teach at greghowlett.com. Make sure you understand this course. Walk through it, practice the concepts before you move on to other courses. This is the one that when you take my other courses, I tell you over and over again, if you're weak on charting a song, go back and take this class. This is the course that I'm referring to, how to chart a song. Now, we're only going to spend about an hour on this, and we're going to give you enough material where you can go out and start doing this on your own. Very, very, very valuable skill. With a little practice, you'll get quite good at it. Let me give you a few prerequisites before we get started. What do you need to know before you start? First thing, I need you to know how to read music. I need you to know how to read staffs, basic stuff, accidentals, time signatures, all the basic stuff that you know from your first few years of piano lessons. And then the second thing that would be helpful is if you have at least a rudimentary knowledge of theory. Just basic stuff. If you can build a scale, that'd be great. It doesn't matter if you can play them fast, but at least be able to build them. At least know how to build a scale. If I told you to play an E-flat scale, you should be able to do something like this. Maybe not that fast, maybe not that smooth, but it's critical that you know the notes that are in the scale. It's not necessarily critical that you can rip it up and down the keyboard, but it's critical that you at least know what the notes are. You're going to see why as we go. The reason why, very simply, is we name the chords based on their position within the scale. So that would be a 1 chord, 2 chord, and 3 chord, and so on. And we're going to talk through that, but that's why it's so critical that you follow me and you understand what we're doing here with scales. We'll cover it. We'll give you a little bit review as we get started. That's all you need to know, though. There's no other prerequisites for the course. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about why we do this in the first place. Really what we're doing here is we're going to be looking at 4-part harmony written in a hymnal and reducing it to a lead sheet or a chord chart. And we'll talk about what those are and the differences between those things. But really what we're doing is we're looking at the vocal harmony. You have a soprano line, an alto line, a tenor line, and a bass line. And we look at the notes for each chord, each note, each chord. We look at the notes, figure out which chord is being played, and we label the chord. We're going to label the chord by number or letter. We're going to use numbers in this class above the melody note. So really, when that's done, we've reduced all those notes just to a melody line and the chords. If you have the melody line and you have the chords, you should be able to play a song. So we're actually going to move away from vocal harmony, reading vocal harmony like many of us do as church pianists, and we're going to move toward what we call a lead sheet, which is a melody line and the chords, and sometimes the lyrics. Very, very important. Lead sheets are not new. They've been around for 100 years, but they haven't really made their way into church yet. But they're coming. And once you start using them, you're going to start loving them. If you do improvisation, lead sheets are a great way to notate music for musicians that improvise. And of course, improvisation is a big part of music in the 20th century, and it's a huge part of what church pianists do. So it's very, very natural that you'll see lead sheets come into the church. And it's very natural for you, if you improvise, to start converting the music that you play from vocal parts and that kind of thing into a lead sheet. A lead sheet is a much more flexible and easy way to play music rather than trying to look at vocal parts and figure out what chord is being played. Really, a lead sheet is a step closer to where you want to be. So we're going to talk about how to do that. This is critical for almost everything. Reharmonization, chord substitutions, arranging, transposing, accompanying, you name it. Almost any skill a church pianist does is really based on the fact that you understand the harmony in a song. That's what all this is. When we chart a song, we're looking at the harmony and we're figuring out what it is, writing it in, basically converting vocal harmony into a lead sheet. Now, there's another way you can represent music too, and I'm going to cover it really quickly. I'll show you the difference. This, by the way, if you look at the bottom of page 1, this is a lead sheet, what it looks like. Okay, so you have a melody line. Sometimes you'll have the lyrics under the melody line. Here we don't. We just have a melody line because as a pianist we really don't need the lyrics. And then above it, notice that we have chord symbols. Now these are notated as Roman numerals. And this is, I would say, not necessarily typical on a lead sheet, but you can either represent chords as by letters. In other words, this right here is a G chord. The one chord in the key of G is a G chord. We could write G there. I've chosen in this class to teach you how to write chords by number. There's some advantages and there's some disadvantages. If you write by number, it requires a little more work, but long term, it gives you a lot more flexibility. We'll talk about why as we go. All right, so hopefully that gave you an idea of what goes on in this course and why it's important. Of course, I'm going to take you through a lot of examples. We'll chart some songs. I'll talk about how to unscramble the notes into chords. We'll talk about gotchas to watch out for, tips and tricks to make it go smoother. There's a lot of examples in the course, but we also have tons of examples available outside the course if you have a hymnal. All of us probably should take some time every week to chart, to work on this skill, because we need to get to the point where we can read chords as fast as we play. This course will get you well on your way to doing that. Now, in this second clip, I'm going to show you one more clip from the course, and we're actually going to chart a song, the first line of the hymn, Jesus Saves, just to give you an idea of the process that we go through. And we're going to start fresh and walk through this song and chart the chords by number, not by name, by number. Okay, first of all, big tip. Again, we're not so interested in charting stuff like this. When you have this kind of movement, these short first of all, it's a pickup measure. If you were going to play that, you probably wouldn't play a chord at all. But if you were going to chart this, let's go ahead and do it. We have a G and a G and a B and a D. Here's the notes. Now this one is really easy because you have two Gs. If you take away the bottom G, you're left with a triad. Now we're in the key, I forgot to mention this, we're in the key of G, so let's make sure we know what the 1, 4, and the 5 chords are. G is the 1 chord, C is the 4 chord, D is the 5 chord. Okay, we can look at this chord and we say, okay, the bottom note is G. We can assume it's a 1 chord until we're proven differently. So we say, okay, we think this is the 1 chord. What are the other 2 notes? B and D. Those are the other 2 notes in a 1 chord. Let's just look and see if that's the case, and it is. It's a 1 chord. So if we were going to chart it, and you don't necessarily have to chart these kind of things, but we would put a 1 over it because G major is the 1 chord in the key of G. Let's move on to this chord. Okay, now again, look at the bottom note is G, so let's assume it's G until proven otherwise. G, B, and D. There's your B, there's your D. Okay? There's a 1 chord again. Now, we could worry about charting these notes, but I can take a quick look and see that it still stays on the same chord. Right here, this is still a G chord. Right here, it changes from a G chord. From a technical standpoint, that's not a G chord anymore, but it's a passing tone. It's the 16th note just passing. You're passing from G to B through A. We're not concerned about charting that. On a very, very technical level, maybe. But for what we're doing here, we don't need to worry about those kind of things. So we're not going to do anything there. We're going to, as a matter of fact, really, I should erase that 1. This is just a 1 chord for the whole bar. That's it. You could play it that way. You don't have to change the chord. You see, I'm just playing a 1 chord on the first bar, and that's all there is to it. Let's move on to bar 3. Again, look at the bottom note first, G. Does it have a B and a D in it? It does, B and a D. So it's another 1 chord. Same thing here. Now, you can quickly look at that and see that's G, B, and D too, so it's still a 1 chord, not that we really care. Bar 4. We have another G. There's a G chord staring at you, right? So 1 chord again. And then we finally get off the 1 chord. I'll leave it there. On bar 5, we're finally moving off. We're moving to a D in the bass. Now, D is the 5th degree of the key of G. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, that's the 5 chord. What are the other 2 notes? F sharp and A. Let's see if there's an F sharp and A. There they are, right there. F sharp and A. So this is a 5 chord. Okay? Now, is it a 7? Is it a 5-7? We just talked about 5-7s. It's not a 5-7 because there's no 7th in it. There's only 3 notes. Now, the 4th note would be a C. Okay, there's your 5 chord. You add the 7th, which would be C. If there was a C in that chord, we'd call it a 5-7. Okay? By the way, notice we have it right here. You see that? Now, we don't necessarily have to chart that, but if we were going to chart that chord, now we have those 3 notes. This is still a 5 chord with a missing 5 in it. It's a 5 chord with a missing 5, but there's your 7. So if we were going to chart this, we would say at this point we go to 5-7. Don't get confused, the A is missing. I told you that very often the 5th will be missing from a chord. Okay? Just look at the bottom note, spell out the chord, and look, okay, why are we missing a note? Well, the 5th is missing. Just notice that and then write in 5-7 in this case because you have the 7 in it. Okay? Moving on to bar 6. Now, repetition, you've got to acknowledge and respect and notice repetition in music. Repetition is very important. Don't do the same work twice. We're playing exactly the same 2 bars here, right? So we're just going to write in the chords again. Those 2 bars are identical to those 2 bars. So I'm not going to analyze them. I'm just going to write in the chords. By the way, notice how short this song is, how quick this is going, even though I'm going slow. It's only 16 bars long. Finale labels the pickup measure with a number. At least it does for me. I haven't figured out how to change it. This is really a 16-bar song. And we're already on bar 7. See how it moves quick. This is not hard to do. You'll find this is typical once you start doing it. All right, we're on a 1 chord. We move to bar 8. Bar 8 has a D on the bottom, okay? So we're going to assume 5 chord until we're proven wrong. Does it have an F sharp and A? It does, F sharp and A. So this is a 5 chord. Okay? Now here, notice we're not going to worry too much about it, but notice again, we have the same chord, but we've added a C. Okay? So we have a D, F sharp, A, and a C. That's your 5-7. We could write in 5-7 there. Okay? And then on bar 9, notice we have a G again in the bass. Let's check and see if we have a B and a D, and we do. There's a B and there's a D, so this is your 1 chord again. All right, Jesus Saves, very, very simple song, as you probably saw. As a matter of fact, Jesus Saves has only 3 chords in it, 1, 4, and 5. But there are a lot more intricate songs, not only within the chorus, but within your hymnal. Fortunately, hymns don't get that complicated, but they do get more complicated than Jesus Saves. So this course will help you get to the point where you can analyze pretty much any hymn. And again, this is a foundational thing. If you struggle at all in this area, it's really in your best interest to work through this course before you tackle more technical courses and some of the more theory-intensive courses at greghowlett.com.